Okay. Well, hello. You probably noticed the audio is terrible, and that is not intentional, but a matter of circumstance. But I wanted to make at least a video before the state show. Um, so just to also tell you about like what I'm planning as far as the Minnesota State Parade show and what patterns I'm going to be putting out when. And so that's going to be at the end of this video. You can obviously skip this if you want to, but I also thought that, a lot of times people talk about bits. And, there's some people that are like, bits in general are bad. There's people that, you know, don't have too much preference either way. Um, so I just kind of wanted to talk about what bits I feel like if I had to pick like three bits that I could only ever use, what would they be? And I'm going to try and do one English bit, one Western bit, one that you'll see. So, number one, first and foremost, no bit is perfect. It is how harsh anything is. This goes for spurs, this goes for bits, this goes for anything that you are using. You, the rider, determine how harsh it is. Obviously, there are some bits designed and made in such a way to be harsh, or harsher than others. But in the hands of someone that knows what they're doing, that changes things a little bit. Although there are certain bits I feel like, no one should use. But in general, the bit is as harsh as the rider's hands make it. All horses are different. What works for one won't work for another. And you have to take the skill of both the horse and rider into account and realize, a bit is not going to just fix everything. Just going to a harsher bit is not going to solve a root problem if you can't make your horse stop or turn. Just getting a harsher bit is not going to actually fix the problem. So, in general, I would say that there's three kind of classifications of bits. This is not counting all of them, but in general. And I also have a little diagram on the right showing you like what colors and what locations these things are referencing. So in the top, so let's start with a snaffle. So snaffles is really simple. I would say most people already have a snaffle, whether it's a D-ring, egg butt, or just a loose ring snaffle. Someone has, you have one, and if you don't, you need one. They work via direct pressure. So direct versus indirect pressure. Direct pressure means that the amount of pressure that you directly apply and generally in the same direction is what the horse is going to feel. And snaffles generally act mostly on the horse's mouth and tongue because that's where you have the most contact and you're not going to really have a noseband. Like you don't need one. And you can use a chin strap with a snaffle, but it shouldn't really like do anything. It shouldn't be tight enough to do anything. Non-mouthpiece bits, that would be like a hackamore or a cell or a mechanical hackamore. Those sometimes you don't see those as much as I used to in the games. Like when I was in 4-H, like, everyone was running in little S hackamores. I don't see that as much anymore. But anyway, also with the direct pressure, but these tend to act more so on the top of the horse's nose as well as their chin and sometimes also the poll, depending on how, just what type you're working with. And lastly, we have a curb bit that works on basically every part of the horse except for the bridge of their nose. It has a shank that causes the bit to have added pressure via leverage. So a curb bit is an indirect pressure bit, meaning that the amount of pressure that you add can be modified in direction or in the amount of pressure. Typically, with leverage, if you think about it, why can you lift something really heavy in a wheelbarrow? Because you have that leverage. So what pressure you apply is typically amplified and increased. on the horse's mouth, what they feel. And you're more likely to have a port in a curb bit than a snaffle. Port is basically, and I'll explain it on the next. Yeah. So then I just have examples. So this is the little S-hack mod that I was talking about, that like it seemed like everyone and their uncle was running in games when I was in it, but or not in games, but like in 4-H. And then just a Bozell, which you'll sometimes see pleasure people use for like younger horses, but not very often. Snaffles, we have a loose ring, egg, butt, and a D ring. Curb bit, anything with a shank. You know, some of them have a port, like the one on the far right. Some of them don't. Some of them are completely solid. Some of them are broken in multiple places. We'll talk about that later. But on the right here, I think a lot of people should just kind of familiarize themselves a little bit more in general with just the names and terms that go into the specifics of your equipment. You know, this goes for saddles, this goes for bits, like bridles, everything, because in certain disciplines, words can mean different things. So just keep that in mind. What do I look for? I'm going to be looking to buy a bit. First and foremost, or use a bit in general, is it legal for shows? A lot of associations have rules for a reason, and if it is not show legal, there's probably a reason for it. So that's generally a good place to start. Non-invasive, something that's comfortable for the horse and safe. Basically, is the bit, well made? Is it quality materials that's going to last? Is it straight? We bought a bit once at a tax swap, and I don't know if it happened, like this was years after we bought it. I don't know, like if I just like didn't take care of it. It was a cheaper bit. It was aluminum that didn't hold up very well, and the whole bit, if you look down from the top, the one side was like askew by like quarter to a half inch. Like it was really, really crooked. Like the port got twisted. So obviously, if you put that in the horse's mouth, they're going to feel that crookedness. And when you go in with your hands, they're going to be uneven. Even if you're pulling with even pressure, they're going to feel that. So make sure that the bit is well made. And when I say comfortable and safe, I mean if you have something with a lot of joints to it, make sure that it's something that when those joints swivel or pivot or something, they're not going to pinch. And a good way to do that is if you put the bit in the like your elbow where you bend, and then do like, I don't know what you do with like a weight, and like you bring your hand down and then like towards your face, and just have the bit between the crook of your elbow. And if you like do that a couple times and it pinches, you're very likely going to have a bit that will pinch your horse's mouth and make them unhappy. Next, versatile. Is it something that I can just throw it on, multiple horses? It's not something that is going to be really uncomfortable for a horse over time. Does it work for other disciplines? Does it have multiple applications? Bits are expensive, so you want to have something that works in multiple situations. And also, is it made to give the outcome that I am looking for? Obviously, if you are working on a horse on barrels or something, and you put a curb bit in their mouth, a curb bit is not made to give you the desired outcome you are going to want when doing barrels, at least in 99.9% of situations. So keep those things in mind. So my 3 bits, I did a really bad job of like, ooh, suspense. Anyway, so 3 bits. So first and foremost, for young horses, schooling, or in general, if I am doing something new or in a new place, a snaffle. Just a general snaffle. I have both of the ones that are pictured here in my text or in my trailer. So the bigger one is the one that I preferred, the horse that I rode preferred. I always like having something with copper. If you don't have a bit with copper, that's also fine, but like it helps keep their mouth, um, more soft and moist. Also, sweet iron is really good. They don't make them really anymore. The ones that they do make are super expensive. But if you can find a sweet iron Snaffle, those are the ticket. Because if you have a young horse, they'll just sit and like suck on the bit. It's really weird. They like to chew on it and everything. At least the one that I did. He was weird. If you have a horse that is really active, maybe they get nervous, I would try one like the one in the bottom where it's got a roller. Ground driving, you can use it with draw reins if you would like. So because it is a direct pressure bit, if you want to use something that alters the direction of the pressure of things, like draw reins, like a martingale or a running martingale, using a Snaffle is your safest bet. And just like I said, trying something new, or if I am just relaxing and I'm not trying to have it be like a schooling day, maybe I want to go on a trail ride. There you go. Like that's what I would use. For English, this is very specific. So they are Mylar brand. They're level 1 English D-ring with hooks. Very long name. Now, I will say, they don't make the ones with the type of slots in the D-ring that I prefer. As soon as I found that out, I went on eBay and bought another couple. So now I'm good. I have 2, but if you can find them at a tax swap or on eBay, I highly, highly recommend the ones that have the slots in the D-ring itself, and also preferably one that has another hole for your chain to go through. So that way, if you want to have a curved chain, you can. If you don't want one, you don't have to, because otherwise you're like trying to loop it through the bit itself, and then it's like really awkward. So I prefer this bit. So I like it because it's a modified dog bone Snaffle. So when I say modified, what you can do is you see those slots in the bottom of the D-ring, right? You can use those to make it act more like a leverage bit rather than a direct pressure bit. So you essentially have like a Kimberwick bit inside of a D-ring Snaffle. So you can pick and choose what you need. So it's essentially 2 bits in one, which is really nice. And also, so where there's like a 2 and a 4 on the picture, that is like a protector around your hinge, but it also makes it so the bit can't collapse in itself. It's so the sides like lift up one side or the other, which is really nice. And you can also see like the bit is kind of curved to sit in their mouth a little bit more than like a straight Snaffle would be, which again I like. I understand if you don't want to buy one of these bits because first off, we don't make them anymore, so they're hard to find. And second, I'm pretty sure when I bought mine and I got like all the hooks, and I actually, the first one that I ordered is the one that you see in the bottom where it's got the copper roller in the middle. If you can't tell, I really like having bits with copper. And it was like $120 bit. So it was a purchase, but everyone that I have borrowed the bit to, or every horse that like I have ridden that has used this bit, just like it, they are so much more like pleasant and soft with it. I don't, I don't know. My sample size is probably only like 8 or 10, but I know a lot of people in the quarter horse that if they don't use just a regular D-ring Snaffle or like dog bone D-ring Snaffle, they use this. So take with that what you will. Yeah, you can choose where to have your reins. I personally don't like the ones that have a raised port like mouthpiece, but you can't get them like that. Any of the Mylar bits, you can get whatever mouthpiece in whatever like side piece, if that makes sense. And then I like it for the equitation and the on-seat. Also prefer this over Kimberwick because for the English, you want, at least with stock horses, you want their neck to be nice and flat and level, right? So I want them to relax and be comfortable having your hands in contact with them. And I feel like with a Kimberwick, you get a lot more. They break at the like they curve their neck more rather than letting you like mess with their mouth. That's not like a good way to explain it, but like I feel like with this bit versus a Kimberwick, they don't feel as like they don't want to over tuck their nose with this, which you don't want them to do in English. Again, having a bit that is made to do what you are intending for your horse to do. And lastly, for the Western Pleasure Horsemanship Trail, the one and only bit I feel that like once your horse is at this level though, I will say if you have like a horse that does not know how to neck rein, does not know how to like do basic things, do not put this in their mouth. You should be riding them the Snaffle until they are broke. To walk, trot, lope nicely. You don't have to like really get into their face all the time. Like the correction bit is for a horse that is broke and you are now working on getting them to collect. So I personally have the bit on the right are like very, very similar. And I also have one that is essentially the mouthpiece of this one that I took like a zoomed in photo, but like the cheek piece is a little bit like more simple. Again, you can see both of them have copper, a running theme, but you will know these are not solid bits. These bits, both of them, have the shanks, like the cheek pieces swivel, and the port swivels in the middle. So the bit has a lot of play in it. You can really, it moves a lot. And I personally like that because if you think about it, and you are just switching from a snaffle into a ported bit of any kind. Honestly, you could look at getting like something different than this if you are doing that exchange. But I think going from something with a ton of play and things that move in a snaffle, and then going to a completely solid curve bit is like the most awkward transition because you're going from something that is first off direct pressure with a lot of play in it that moves with the horse's mouth to if you're going to a completely solid curb bit, you now have to deal with indirect pressure. You have no side to side steering. If you get into an emergency situation, the cheeks don't move. So the horse has no directionality, like one side has more play in it than the other. So I think, in general, solid bits. I'm skipping ahead in what I'm thinking with my presentation. We're gonna hold that thought. Anyway, correction bits are fantastic. Everyone should have one if you are joining in the pleasure of horsemanship. I personally don't like something with like a crazy high port, like only an inch, inch and a half. Medium shanks, 5 to 7 inches. I like copper. you know, the biggest thing is that it is a broken with hinges bit. And last but not least, I'm going to tell you what I don't like, which you've probably already heard me say. So first off, what I was ranting about before, solid curve bits. Lifter bits, which I will explain on the right shortly. In the middle, we have a Kimberwick. Yeah, I'm trying to think what exactly is the difference between the Kimberwick and the Mylar that I showed you. Because other than the Kimberwick not being a broken bit, at least I haven't seen any Kimberwicks that are broken. They all have a solid mouthpiece. That's the only difference, really. So, lastly, gag bits. That's personal preference. I know a lot of people that run games use gag bits. Do with that what you will. I don't game. I don't feel like it's my place to tell you what you should and shouldn't use. But in the grand scheme of things, if you are having problems with something, just going to a harsher bit is going to make things worse in the long run. So, going back to my third point, lifter bits. So on the right, you can see two curb bits. The top right one is a solid bit, which I'm not a huge fan of unless the horse and rider are ready. I, at like the end of my showing career with my horse, would show her in a solid bit for the Western Pleasure that had slightly longer shanks and just like, it was overall just a bigger bit than what I would use for the horsemanship and trail. Because if you think about it, in the horsemanship and trail, you want to have contact. You want to be able to, like, you know, turn and do things. So for that, you don't want to have a solid bit that you cannot physically, like, give those minute differences. Okay, so lifter bits. A lifter bit is a bit in which the top portion of your curb, like side cheek piece, is long. So like the part that connects to the bridle, not the part that connects to the reins, is longer than normal. So there's a couple reasons why these are, you know, a thing. First off, people are like, oh, well, if I alter the points of leverage, so if you think of a seesaw, how does that affect the amount of pressure the horse is feeling? And it also raises the horse's curb chain higher up on their mouth, or on the back of their chin. I personally am not a fan of them. I actually owned one, or maybe still do. I think I sold it. That I used on my horse, and she was particular. But it didn't. I just didn't like it. I don't know. But that's personal preference. That's it. I have sources that I will put in the not the comments, the information link thing that you can click on that has like more information on different mouth pieces, different cheek pieces, and like what type of material do you use for bits, because that's something I didn't really talk about other than obsessively talking about copper. There's different materials you can use for your bits. So I want to give you guys as many resources as possible. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Otherwise, thank you for watching. It would be really nice if you would like or subscribe. But yeah, I will see you guys soon. And this is the last slide, which means I can tell you I am going to do my very, very best to make videos on all of the patterns from the State Horse Show again this year. I did it last year. I'm going to try and do it again this year. So I'm going to release them in order of like when you would show them. So like showmanship will be the very first thing that I put out. Then it'll be the showmanship or the trail and horsemanship, and then the equitation afterwards. I'm hopeful to get the showmanship one out like Thursday night if I can. Really depends on editing and how long it takes for YouTube to buffer, because like the YouTube algorithm like goes through and makes sure there's like copyrighted music or, you know, bad words and things like that. So if it takes a long time to load, it might be really late Thursday night or Friday morning. But yeah, I am hoping to do that again. So good luck to everyone at the state. Hopefully you found this video helpful. See you next time.